The monitor in the green room was always on. It was a cruel tradition, a TV tuned to the very network you were about to go on, a constant reminder of the ticking clock and the millions watching at home. Tonight, in the fluorescent glare of the green room at Fox News, the screen was a torture device. Karoline Leavitt, the youngest and most fiercely loyal press secretary in recent memory, watched the final minutes of the Jimmy Kimmel Live monologue. She watched it with her jaw tight, her knuckles white around a bottle of water she hadn't touched. Kimmel, with that insufferable smirk, was doing his bit. He'd just finished a clip of her from that afternoon's press briefing, the one where she defended the former president's latest, most controversial statement with a stone-cold seriousness that bordered on defiance. On the screen, Kimmel leaned on his desk, the audience hanging on his every word. "And that," he said, pointing to the frozen image of her on the monitor behind him, "is the sound of one hand clapping, or in this case, the sound of one brain cell trying to process the concept of truth. Karoline Leavitt, everyone, the human equivalent of a mission-accomplished banner." The audience roared. They howled. It was a simple, brutal punchline, but in the echo chamber of the late-night studio, it felt like a body blow. Karoline didn't flinch. She'd been called worse by people with more followers. But she knew who was watching at home, and she knew what was about to happen. Across town, in the gilded penthouse of Trump Tower, the sound of that laughter was not a distant echo. It was a direct assault. The former president was in his study, the walls a garish testament to his own mythology. He was on his second Diet Coke of the hour, the foam still clinging to the inside of the glass, watching the same segment on a massive flat screen. For a moment, he just stared. Then a low rumble started deep in his chest. It wasn't a laugh, it was the tectonic shift of his mood turning. "Can you believe this?" he said, not to anyone in particular, though his aide, a nervous young man named Chad, was standing by the door. "This guy, this third-rate comedian, he's making fun of Karoline? She's a patriot. She's a beautiful, brilliant young woman, and he's eviscerating her on live television." Chad knew better than to answer. He knew this was a monologue, not a conversation. "She went out there today," Trump continued, his voice rising, the New York accent thickening with anger. "She stood at that podium, the fake news media screaming at her, and she was perfect, she was flawless, and this pipsqueak, he calls her the human equivalent of a mission-accomplished banner? What does that even mean? It means nothing. It's a weak, low-energy, failing joke from a failing show watched by failing people." He picked up his phone. His fingers, stubby and precise, hovered over the screen. He didn't dial, he dictated. "Post. Just watched sleepy Jimmy Kimmel, a guy with zero talent and a face made for radio, absolutely bomb with a joke about our wonderful Karoline Leavitt. He mocked her. He mocked a woman who goes out every day and fights for the truth against the corrupt lamstream media. Karoline is a star. Kimmel is a dud. His ratings are in the toilet, probably because he spends his nights crying over the fact that I'm still winning. Sad." His thumb slammed the post button. The words were launched into the digital universe, a missile seeking its target. The notification went off in newsrooms, on phones, in the green room where Karoline sat. She looked at her own phone. The headline from a breaking news alert flashed. "Trump rips Jimmy Kimmel after comedian's jab at Karoline Leavitt." The 10 o'clock hour hit. Karoline took a deep breath and walked onto the Fox News set, her heels clicking a sharp, confident rhythm on the polished floor. The host, Sean Hannity, greeted her with a knowing smile. "We're talking about this, Karoline," he said, gesturing to a monitor. "The former president obviously did not appreciate the way you were treated tonight. Your response?" And she was ready. She had the talking points down, the angle sharpened.
She leaned forward, her eyes wide with a practiced sincerity. "Sean, it's not about me. It's about a movement. It's about a media culture that is so desperate, so bereft of real ideas, that they have to resort to personal attacks on hard-working staff members. President Trump sees that. He sees the injustice. He fights for us, just like he fights for every American who's ever been laughed at by the coastal elites." It was a perfect performance, but the performance wasn't over. It was just the opening act. Because the former president had not yet erupted. He had simply posted. Back in the penthouse, the post had been up for 20 minutes. The replies were rolling in, the usual mix of adoration and anger. But one reply, buried in the thousands, snagged his attention. A news outlet had clipped Kimmel's full monologue. Trump clicked on it. He watched it again, and this time he heard something he hadn't caught before. After the bit about Karoline, Kimmel had moved on. He'd shown a clip of Trump himself from a rally earlier that day, where he'd seemed to mix up the names of two world leaders. The clip on Kimmel's show had been slowed down, a funny sound effect added, making him look confused and old. The glass slammed down on the mahogany desk. Diet Coke sloshed onto a stack of printed news articles. "That's it," he bellowed. "That's it."
This wasn't about Karoline anymore. This was about him, the disrespect, the mockery of a sitting, well, former, but in his mind, still the rightful president. The sound effect. It was a declaration of war. He grabbed his phone again, but this time he didn't dictate. He called his senior advisor, a man known only as the General within the inner circle for his strategic mind and his ability to handle Trump at his most volcanic. "He's done," Trump said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Kimmel, he's finished. I want a statement, not a post, a statement, from me. Call it the Kimmel Conundrum. No, that's weak. Call it the late-night loser. Get me the numbers, his ratings for the last 5 years. Get me every joke he's ever made about me, about my family, about my administration. I'm going to release it all. I'm going to expose him for the hack he is. We're going to destroy him." The General, used to these 2 a.m. firestorms, tried to calmly interject. "Sir, it's late. Maybe we let the Post marinate, see how the news cycle—" "No!" The roar was deafening. "You don't understand. This isn't about the news cycle. This is about respect. He humiliated Karoline on live TV. Then he humiliated me. He used sound effects like I'm some kind of cartoon character. I don't get sound effects. I'm the one who gives sound effects. You're fired. That's a sound effect, not this." He hung up. The statement was drafted anyway by a junior staffer, bleary-eyed at 1 a.m., a seething, rambling press release that called Kimmel a desperate, untalented fool who is destroying the legacy of late-night television, much like his hero, Crooked Hillary, tried to destroy the country. It was never sent. The General, in a rare act of defiance, sat on it. He knew morning would bring a different perspective, but the damage was done. The fuse was lit, and it snaked its way through the night, under the doors of the studios, into the bedrooms of the commentators, and straight into the heart of the next day's news cycle. The next morning, Karoline Leavitt woke up to a firestorm. She was no longer just the press secretary. She was a symbol. The right-wing media was rallying around her. "Kimmel's cruel mockery," the headlines screamed. "Trump's champion fights back." Her phone was a constant buzz of interview requests. She was booked on every show. She went on Fox and Friends, sitting on the couch, accepting their praise with a humble nod. "I just did my job," she said, a line she'd rehearsed. "President Trump is the one who showed the world what real leadership looks like." Meanwhile, on the other side, Jimmy Kimmel's producers huddled. They had a show to do in a few hours. The Trump post had gone viral. The press release, though unsent, had been leaked to a reporter. The story had metastasized. It wasn't just a joke anymore. It was a national incident. Kimmel, for his part, was unfazed. He'd been through this before. He walked into his office that afternoon, read the coverage, and grinned. "Oh boy," he said to his head writer, "we really poked the bear this time." "Jimmy, maybe we pivot," the writer suggested. "The Karoline thing, it's become a whole movement. They're rallying around her."
Kimmel waved a dismissive hand. A movement? It's one press secretary and a very thin-skinned former president. We have a show to do, and I have a monologue to write. That night, the tension was palpable. The studio audience was buzzing, knowing they were about to witness a potential nuclear exchange. The band played, the announcer boomed, and Jimmy Kimmel walked out, smiling, waving, as if the world hadn't been threatening to implode around him for the last 24 hours. He got to his mark, adjusted his tie, and looked into the camera. "Welcome to the show," he began, his voice dripping with faux sincerity. "We have a great show for you tonight. But first, I want to address something that has become how shall I put it, a situation." The audience chuckled, sensing the incoming storm. "Last night, I made a joke about Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. It was, admittedly, a little mean, but it was a joke, the kind of joke we do on this show every night. Well, it seems that joke was not well received by her boss, the former president, Donald J. Trump." He paused, letting the name hang in the air. The audience, already primed, let out a mix of boos and cheers. And boy, did he let me have it. He went on a tear. He called me a dud. He said my show is failing. He said I have a face for radio, which, okay, fair point. He waited for the laugh. It came. But then things got a little weird. He got very upset about a sound effect. You see, we showed a clip of him at a rally, and we added a little funny noise. And this, apparently, is where you draw the line. You can question his policies, you can question his truthfulness, but you do not question his audio integrity. The audience was with him now, laughing along. So, in response to this perceived attack, he wrote a statement, a long, rambling, all-caps statement that was so nuclear, even his own advisors were like, "Whoa, let's maybe sleep on this one." And they didn't send it. They did the right thing. They saved the country from a very serious international incident. He leaned on his desk, the picture of casual confidence. But here's the thing. The statement got leaked, and I've read it, and I have to say it's a masterpiece. It's like if an angry tweet and a ransom note had a baby, and that baby was raised by a thesaurus that didn't know what any of the words meant. The laughter grew louder. This was his turf, his game. So, in the spirit of fairness, and because I'm a giver, I thought I'd share some of the highlights with you. He called me a desperate, untalented fool. He said I'm destroying the legacy of late-night television, much like his hero, Crooked Hillary, tried to destroy the country.
Kimmel put on a look of mock horror. My hero? Hillary Clinton? I'll have you know, my heroes are people like the guy who invented the snooze button, or the person who realized you could put peanut butter and chocolate together. That's heroism. Hillary Clinton is a former Secretary of State, not a candy bar. He was rolling now, the crowd eating out of his hand. And you know what the best part is? The best part is all of this entire 24-hour news cycle, this international incident, all because I called his press secretary the human equivalent of a mission accomplished banner, which, by the way, is still a better analogy than anything he's come up with. And he's come up with a lot. Crocodile tears, low-energy Jeb, Pocahontas. He's the Shakespeare of schoolyard insults. He looked directly into the camera, a glint in his eye. So, to the former president, I say this. Thank you. Thank you for proving my point. Thank you for showing the entire country that you can't take a joke. And thank you for the ratings. Seriously, this is the most attention my show has gotten since I made fun of that guy from The Bachelor. So, from the bottom of my heart and from the entire staff of Jimmy Kimmel Live, we salute you. You're the gift that keeps on giving. We'll be right back. The band kicked in, the audience applauded wildly, and Kimmel walked off set, a satisfied smile on his face. He'd done it again. He'd taken the punch and landed a counterpunch that was heard all the way to Trump Tower. And in that tower, the eruption was no longer a simmering rage. It was a full-blown, landscape-altering volcanic explosion. The remote control flew across the room, shattering against the far wall. The phone was grabbed, and this time there was no general to stop him.
He didn't dictate a post. He didn't write a statement. He called a producer at a sympathetic news network. He was going on television tonight. He was going to respond, live, unscripted, and unfiltered. The hook was set. The audience that had watched the first 30 seconds had seen a simple joke on a late-night show. They had no idea they were about to witness the opening salvo in a war that would dominate the news for weeks. A war that started with a roast of a press secretary and ended with the most powerful man in the Republican Party holding nothing back on live television. And as the news broke that Trump would be making an unscheduled appearance, every single person who had seen that first segment leaned in. They had to see what happened next.